to another episode of the Daily Flip podcast. I'm your host, Alex, and today we're going to be flipping through a story coming out of Kentucky and how the GOP primary there for the Senate seat got a little bit more contentious. And of course, we will end today with a little preview of what's coming down the pipe in that race. Now, obviously, if you've been with me for a long time, you know I lived in Kentucky, so I don't have any insider politics, though I do have a perspective informed by people who are on the ground. So with that, let's get into our daily debate. So out of everybody in this field, if you don't know Kentucky politics, there is Daniel Cameron, and he was a AG, or more accurately, a prosecutor in Louisville when the Breonna Taylor incident happened, and it caused a lot of hatred for him in different places across the state. But if you remember back to those days, he was Mitch McConnell's favorite, I would say his second son, and he is obviously different than Mitch McConnell. He's taken different positions, but is Mitch McConnell's legacy affirmed in Kentucky with a person like Daniel Cameron, and is that a good thing? I want to hear your opinions. Maybe you don't like Mitch McConnell. Maybe you don't think his brand of politics is the way to run the Senate or even represent a state. I want to know. Throw it down there in the comment section, because this is his seat. This is truly the end of his era. He already stepped down from leadership, but this is the end of Mitch's era. So I want to know what your opinions are. Throw it down there in the comment section down below. With that said, let's actually get into the article. This one comes from Semaphore, and this is from the Semaphore Principals morning briefing. Headline: Exclusive new poll reveals Kentucky's shifting Senate race. And I thought this was absolutely fascinating. I knew that Andy Barr was running. I actually met his wife at one point, or it was possibly his mother. It was a person very close to him out there in the field, and she had shirts for Andy that she was handing out. Now, it could have been a normal person from the campaign, though I do believe it was actually his wife. Lovely person, but he seemed good for local politics, but I didn't know if he had a brand for national politics. And obviously he is technically still running on the state level. I'm not saying he's going for president anytime soon, but this is most definitely a big upgrade coming out of his position a little bit lower, and he is going to go for the big seat, the one that gets you closest to a presidential run if you so choose. And guess who else is in this race? We mentioned him just a minute ago, Daniel Cameron, the former Attorney General of Kentucky, and a man who was running for the governorship against Andy Beshear only 2 short years ago. Well, there's actually a new wrinkle, because for anybody who's asking, Daniel Cameron has the name ID. Some people were joking during his campaign that he was lining it up the entire time, that he didn't think he could beat Beshear, but he was lining up to get name recognition for the Senate seat. And I, at the time, said, I don't know. I don't necessarily see him going for the Senate seat, but maybe he wants to. And other people told me while I was there, oh, no, watch. That's immediately what he's going to do. And, I had knocked doors, and I didn't know how to respond to that comment. But point being overall, that Daniel Cameron has the name ID, and he's been the favorite coming into this race. Well, now there's a new poll that's coming out, obviously, based on the headline, which is shading the race a little bit differently. Quote, the survey of 600 likely GOP primary voters shared first with Semaphore found 37% favor Cameron, with 29% favoring Barr and 8% favoring businessman Nate Morris. 6 in 10 voters saw Cameron favorably, while 4 in 10 saw Barr favorably, and 1 in 10 saw Morris favorably. And all of these, we're going to end the quote there, all of these, remember, are GOP primary voters. I don't think that they see Barr unfavorably for any particular reason about his policy. All of these guys are pretty, well, Morris, I don't know his track record as much, but Barr and Cameron are pretty lock, stock, barrel conservatives with a little bit of flair here or there on a few different issues. But overall, I think most of their favorable numbers come from the fact that not as many people know them. Their name ID is not higher, especially among GOP primary voters. There are a lot of conservatives in Kentucky, but there are not as many Republicans. And you may be thinking, whoa, what's the difference? Well, there are a lot of blue dog Democrats out towards the eastern part of the state, and they historically have voted Democrat, and they continue to do so, even though you talk to them and they sound like conservatives on a lot of different issues. Now, that's not to say that the conservative movement is secretly very strong, because on local elections they do tend to vote more conservative, more Republican. But on national elections, they tend to vote more Republican. In local elections, they tend to vote a little bit more blue, a little bit more blue doggy, especially with someone like Bashir. So I'll be interested to see how these gentlemen actually penetrate beyond the GOP primary, and whoever gets up there. I think out of all of them, of course, Cameron has the largest name ID, but he also has the largest against him, considering he's run for that biggest post before, and he had a devastating ad campaign against him 2 years ago. Barr, less so. He's a little bit less controversial. He is also not necessarily staked out the same sort of attention on these bad issues. But with that, let's also get down to what everybody said about it. Quote, representatives for Cameron and Morris separately called the new poll fake. Morris's spokesperson, Connor McGinnis, said Barr knows full well that Nate is surging, and Cameron's campaign manager, Taylor Zanissi, sorry if I'm mispronouncing their name, said, quote, Cameron is dominating the field, end quote. And that last thing can be true and do not preclude the fact that the poll is definitely more favorable from Barr, considering his previous positions seem to be a little bit lower. But I love how they both called it fake. This is interesting that this is the world we resort to, even on the local level, not in national politics anymore. We resort to calling these sort of things fake, not to acknowledge them and say, oh, well, he seems to be gaining, but we have strong support, blah, 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 however you want to spin it. It's just simpler, it's more concise, and everybody knows what you're saying when they say, oh, it's fake news, it's a fake poll. And maybe more polling information will come out here in the future. But that is not what I see happening. And let's actually break down a different internal poll that came out a little bit earlier. The numbers have shifted since then a little bit, but not too much, honestly. A different internal poll found 39% favored Cameron, 18% favored Barr, and 3% favored Morris. So actually, in this case, it has all of the participants getting higher favorability ratings. And when you ask yourself, why is that? Why can all of them expand except for Daniel Cameron? It's simply that more people are paying attention. They actually have a thought or opinion about them now because guess what? They're actually going out and getting extra information before these primaries. But the first poll itself, they hyperlink it here in the article. And if you want to read the entire thing, it does come out from a PAC that is aligned in one direction or the other. It's a little bit more favorable of Andy Barr. So that means that he's going to be biased. But if you go to the original document here, this is a pretty similar breakdown talking about Cameron's decline, how in June he was 51% on the ballot, last month 39, and now 32. Despite near universal name ID, Cameron is losing ground and remains well below a majority. His lead is entirely dependent on fading name recognition, not enthusiasm, which is an interesting memorandum that they're putting it out here. And once again, it's from the Keep America Great PAC, one that tends to align a little bit more with Andy Barr. And if you want to read that, it's directly linked in the article itself, because I don't want to just put up a random PDF document, but the Semaphore will definitely maintain and keep that up. So as you look down the pipe here, I think that Andy has a chance to bring it within 3-4 points. I don't think he's going to overtake Cameron. Cameron's name ID is literally just too strong, even though he and Mitch have had a little bit of a separation of opinion. I think that Mitch will not actively try to hurt him. I know that he's putting a little bit of weight behind Barr. At least that's what I've heard from some people who are in the state, so take it with a grain of salt. I think that at the end of the day, Cameron is a really good politician, and he's going to come out on top, especially if they decide to do a debate And if they decide to do another gubernatorial debate like they did last time, I think that it will be absolutely gubernatorial, excuse me, if they do a debate similar to how they did it during the gubernatorial process last year with the GOP. I think it will be fascinating, and I'd love to see both of them on that stage. So, with that said, if you want to read this article, it'll be linked in the description below. That like and subscribe button. Also down there, you can find the podcast on Spotify, Podcast, Podvine, as well as the Twitter handle at your Daily Flip, where I post links to these episodes on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and 6 and 6 on Tuesday and Thursday, which is 6 stories from around the world in 6 minutes or less. With that said, there's only one more thing to say. Stay safe. Don't die.